This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, Chinatown is celebrating its 45th anniversary this year, and the guest I have on the phone at the time broke my online record, 3 hours, but he has since been topped. But he was a wonderful guest, a lot of history, and a lot of fun. Folks, I give you the wonderfully talented Bruce Glover. How do you do, Bruce?
Hey, hello everybody.
39 years old, man.
Yeah, I'm getting younger every day.
Yeah, I remember last time I had you on, you went 3 hours and you said you couldn't stop. And you know what? You've had some rivals and you had a couple top you.
Yeah, but they were boring compared to me.
Well, you certainly told some interesting stories, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But, you know, Chinatown celebrating its 45th anniversary. I would have been 2 years old when that came out in 1974. What do you think of that? You know, something like that's you were part of, and it's still as celebrated today as it was when it came out.
Well, it deserved it because it is a great film, and there's a change in the film industry that, unfortunately, it's more about money than it is about art.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of films being done that have a lot of advertising behind it, and there's big money, and they make big money, and they're big, giant superhero-type films, which are boring. And Chinatown wasn't about superhero. It was about really based on the history of a family in the L.A. area that... basically, I think the writer probably was influenced very heavily by that family and its history and incest and all kinds of wild things that went on.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's a great movie. You look at that film and films like Kill a Mockingbird and brilliant films. And there are still brilliant films being done. But they're usually the low-budget ones that people don't hear so much about. So they don't make as much money, but there's still artists out there trying to do great films. And hopefully the film that I did with my son, Crispin, will fall into that category. We did it very quickly. We shot it mostly in the Czech Republic. And we did it very quickly. It only took us 5.5 years. So, and it seems like another year now of editing going on. And my son is going to submit it to the Sundance
Yep.
In October, and he'll still do a little more editing on it. But it's a film that's title right now, an Untitled Crispin Hellion Glover.
Yeah.
Film. And the title will eventually be decided on after he and I argue about it again some more. But it's 4 generations of families starting at the end of the American Civil War and going on to just beyond the end of the Second World War. And I play 4 different characters in it. So does Crispin. Crispin's the director, and he's also the editor of it. And we and I had to do lots of different characters and hairstyles and beards and no beards and shaven, and people had to. It depended on which section of the film we were shooting as to what hairstyle I'd be wearing. We had various wardrobe things. Of course, you're going back to the Civil War period, so we're dressing, it's a very different look, and then the next element is another look. And So it was a very interesting film. We shot it in the Czech Republic and
Mm-hmm.
the state that my son owns there, a 20-acre estate. We have 2 stables there that were turned into sound stages and built sets. And we had people from all over Europe, some of them working for no money, working on the film. We had Ukrainians, we had some Czechs, we had Poles, we had Brits who lived in Berlin because they were trying to become Germans, and we had Germans, and we had people from everywhere, Scandinavians, even some Americans. So it's a vast project and an amazing project. And my wife made her last few appearances in the thing. She and I dancing in one section, and she was still healthy enough and vibrant enough and still a good dancer, so we have a nice dance sequence in it. And of course, Crispin and I miss her.
Well, it must have been wonderful to have all of you involved in this film. That's a treasure in itself.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we 3, Betty, my wife, and Crispin and I were the 3.
Mm-hmm.
And it will always be, even though we lost her 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I'd have known a vampire back then. I would have had him bite her, and she could have bitten me. And I hate this death stuff. It's really annoying. And the older you get, the more people you lose. And anyone who is themselves getting older, they start to lose everyone. And if they're a freak like me and just still keep on living no matter what goes on, I'm healthy and intend to do a lot more work. I'm working. My next big project is an art book, because I am an artist, painter, and I've sold paintings, and now I'm going to be doing an art book, and I'm working on that with my son, Crispin, who is very helpful with it, because he's published several books already, and you can find out about them and buy them. The Art of Rat Catching and Around My House and a lot of other books. Just look it up on Crispin Glover. Look him up on Facebook, and you can buy his books, and they're terrific books.
Sure.
And they'll be worth it. And mine is going to be terrific, too, so people can start looking for it. It may be a year before it's available, but I'm going to be doing a book with 25, 30 of my paintings in it, and starting all the way back to my early days and right up on through Korea, where I was a soldier in the Army, and I did stuff of Korean women, and then I did stuff of New York when I was in New York, and then I have a variety of styles. Went into abstract and a lot of variations in my paintings, and I will continue doing some more paintings. I'm also a writer, and I've got a couple film scripts. So if anyone's got any money they want to put up for my film scripts, call me immediately. In fact, anyone listening to this can do me a terrific favor if they will look me up on IMDb and look up my credits on IMDb. Every time you do that, that raises my credit score. So if I'm trying to raise money for some reason or other, the credit score means a lot as far as raising money. So people, if you barely like me or love me or can hardly stand me, it doesn't matter. Just look me up on IMDb at least once a day.
Okay.
That'll help my credit score. So how you do that is imdb.com in caps.
Yep.
Then look at my name, and you can then look at credits, and you can look at sections of films that I've done, demo has stuff from things like Chinatown. There are several sections in there from Chinatown, and then the Walking Tall films, which I did. Three of those, but the first one was the best one, and there's some terrific scenes in there from that. And then there's some scenes from Chinatown, terrific scene with Nicholson.
Mm-hmm.
Me trying to get him to stop telling the story about how the Chinese make films.
Do you still take Jack Nicholson around the boat while he takes pictures?
About? I saw him at an event, but he seems to be a little foggy now. So
Okay.
some people maintain it longer than others, and he's around and alive, but I don't think he's real active right now.
No.
Unfortunately, because I love Jack, and he's great to work with, and wonderful fun to be with, and certainly has a variety of great performances in a variety of films, and Jack will always be considered one of the great acting talents of all time.
Yes.
Terrific guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I recently did an event where they showed Chinatown,
Mm-hmm.
and I was on a panel, which I sent you a copy of so you could look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And where we talked after the film was shown, and I hadn't seen the film in a long time, so it was interesting for me to see it again.
They didn't have you handcuffed to the other guy, did they?
What, you mean during our interview after the film was shown?
Sure.
No, I don't think he's alive.
Oh,
Me, so.
I didn't look that up. I just know that you ended up handcuffed, and then poor Jack Nicholson,
Yeah, Jack, it was a great scene, and sad scene, and the longest sequence I had with dialogue was cut out of the film, but the kind of actor I am, I don't have to be talking to be doing good acting.
No.
There's a lot of good stuff in there where I'm just reacting to other people talking and stuff, and I think I added a great deal to the film, and
Mm-hmm.
Roman Polanski was great to work with, and
Mm-hmm.
we had a good friendship when we were working, and used to play chess on set, and he would let me come in, and I would go on days when I wasn't working just to the experience of being around a great filmmaker like Polanski,
Mm-hmm.
and being on set. He also had me come into the dailies, and the dailies were like a kind of social event where all the hot stars of today, mostly beautiful women, would come into the dailies. So it was like a screening every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was invited to come into that by Roman, and so we would play chess, and Jack would kibitz our games, and I would try to get Jack to play a game of chess with me, but he knew I'd whip him, so he never would. And Roman and I were pretty good match. I was a little better. I won a little more than he did, but he was also directing a movie, so I was just playing chess on those things.
I was always wondering, and I don't think I brought this up before, and you weren't in the scene, but maybe you might have heard something, but how did Jack Nicholson and Faye Dunaway prepare for that scene where he gets really physical with her, and it's a pretty violent scene?
It wasn't a day when I was allowed on set. They were it was up in Pasadena, and it was a tight set, and I was there. But I imagine they rehearsed it, and as you would, were hitting the women, which seemed to be, in those days, kind of something guys were allowed to do.
I guess.
I was married. My wife and I were married for 56 years. I never tried to hit her, but she did try to hit me a few times. Probably I deserved it. And, I didn't mind it. I love women that are strong, and she was strong.
Yeah.
But, Faye was and is a very powerful actress, and I think she's still quite active and quite ready to work. I haven't seen her in a few years. Saw her at a couple events, but she's one of the great talents. I think back in those days, her approach was more, I don't know quite what she's like now when she's working, but her approach in those days was to come in blindfolded. You couldn't talk to her. She would come in all set to do the role and in character. Now, that's not the kind of actor I am, nor was it the kind of actor Nicholson was. I mean, when the cameras are rolling, you're in character. As soon as the camera stops, boom, you're yourself, and you can joke and laugh with the camera crew and other crew members and each other actors who aren't afraid of interacting and being out of characters when the camera's not rolling. But Faye, I think, was of that school where you stay in character, and she had it all set as to how she would do things.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a terrific fight in that with Roman on that day when we were going to shoot that scene where she tries to pull a gun out of her purse to shoot
John Huston.
father.
Yeah.
And Houston, and John Huston, who was an impressive man,
Yep.
and talked like this.
Yep.
Pretty scary.
Yep.
But an impressive dude, very impressive.
Yep.
Anyway, they had this scene, and the Roman, a lot of people misunderstood about Roman at this event. The guy who was coordinator said, so I understand that Roman would be very controlling of what you would do as an actor. And I said, no, that's not at all so. All good directors, like Roman and Guy Hamilton, who was one of the best working relationships I ever had, who did Diamonds Are Forever, the Bond film.
Mm-hmm.
And he let me add all kinds of things to the film that were my idea. A lot of that film, a lot of the humor of it really comes from me and my ideas of what was funny and what would work. And he would just say, all right, show me. And then I would show him, and then he would call over the Aussie director of photography, and he'd say, now show him. And I would show him, and the Aussie would always go, yep. So all my ideas were in the film. And but the point being that good directors find what you got and let you do it. They don't try to control you. Amateur directors try to control you and tell you how to do it, like some little silly Hitler, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They're not the Fuhrer. If they're good directors, they see a quality and they bring it into the film. They can bring in people who have never acted before and would never act again ever, because they would see a quality that person had that could be used.
Mm-hmm.
And they were used because they were real.
Yep.
They weren't acting. They were real. Good actors in the long run aren't acting. They're real. And that's what I teach people to do as an actor, acting coach. I've stopped doing classes now because I'm too busy with other projects, but I do privates. So
Okay.
if a person wants to take a private, I give them a good price on it. I'll do a 2-hour private, and they'll just pay me $100 in cash. And what I do is I have them bring an iPhone, and I give them short monologues to record, and I direct them, and we shoot it, and then we shoot it several different ways, and then I tell them how to edit it, and we put together a demo so they can show it to an agent, or if they already have an agent, they can show it to a casting director.
Mm-hmm.
And it will show them being real. So I'm very into the instinct that you have that shouldn't be buried by acting, by being real. One of the things I am as an actor, I am not the same person every time I act. I mean, there are some terrific actors who are always basically the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. I mean, if you're Harrison Ford, he's terrific, but he's always Harrison Ford.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never Bruce Glover on screen. I'm the character. And so if you look at my IMDb and look at my demo, you'll see, 10, 15 different characters, and you see each one of them is an entirely different character. And that's how I work. I become the character by, creating a past life and then let things that come in while you're shooting influence me. I don't control what I'm doing. I want to be surprised, and I want to be surprised by my own work afterwards. And to me, that's the core of all art. Art demands a kind of outrageous surprise that should be going on for the artist as well as for the audience. And I think, I will see a film after and not know what it is I'm going to see until I see it. I mean, when I saw Diamonds Are Forever, where for the first time in history, they had two characters be identified as gay. And that was quite outrageous for 1971. In fact, and they hired two straight guys.
But I guess Sean Connery didn't know the difference with that.
He didn't for quite a while, which was I still laugh about it. And so does he eventually when he found out I wasn't gay, because he was, quite surprised that first of all to find out that I had a scene with him when we were filming the first few weeks in the desert outside of Vegas. And it was a scene where Putter Smith, who was a great musician, played bass fiddle with Thelonious Monk. And again, here's a point where a director will see a quality. And Putter Smith had never worked as an actor. And Guy Hamilton was a Thelonious Monk fan and saw Putter playing bass, which he was a terrific musician and very interesting to look at and wonderfully odd, different-looking person. What a gift he was to me, and he still doesn't realize how much of a gift he was. But Guy Hamilton saw the gift he could be to the film, and he decided, I'm going to grab this guy and put him in the film. That's what good and great directors do. Find people. And they put them in the film, whether they've ever acted or not. Now, that doesn't mean they can't work with an actor, like Faye Dunaway, who was very controlled and knew exactly what she wanted to do, which is why she and Roman got into fights. Some of it was very amusing. The film industry is constantly changing, and hopefully we'll still have some art left in it. It won't just be about money,
Yeah.
and big events with giant heroes who are...
Well, I'm waiting for you to play a superhero.
What?
I'm waiting for you to play a superhero.
I'm doing it right now on your radio show. I still have a 45-inch chest with muscle.
What's it like working with Crispin as a director?
Crispin's a terrific director. We once we're on the set, we would be fine, and any suggestions I had, he would accept. And I watched what he did. He was a good director. I mean, he was also one of those people who could see talent that nobody else would have hired and put them into the film and make them work for the film, which he did with several different talents. And so, yeah, the only we had arguments about the script early on, and somewhat about editing afterwards, which is why he won't let me look at the film. But eventually he'll show it to me again. But no, he's an amazing director. This is his third film, and he'll do more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking forward to his help with my book, my art book.
Yeah.
And Crispin is he's my son, and he's got great talent. And his mother was a very talented lady with. She was a ballet dancer in San Francisco Ballet Company, and then a Broadway dancer doing Guys and Dolls, and she did lots of different dance roles, but also was an actor. And she's the one that saw me and grabbed me and decided to straighten me out, which is what all good women do. They see a guy and they go, well, he looks like he's kind of cute,
Are you straightened out?
Bud. And I was wearing tight pants, and she thought I had a cute ass, I guess.
Well,
she saw I was talented as an actor, and I was, and still am. And I don't know about acting that much now. I'm not particularly concerned with it. I've got other things I want to do. But if somebody comes up with enough money, I'll do another acting role. Somebody that supposedly has me listed for an oncoming film project. I don't know if it'll ever get done, but my name is listed in the thing. But they better come up with a lot of money, otherwise I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, you are listed for one, yep.
Pardon?
You're listed for something called Darkness Awaits.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Awake? Well, we'll see if it awakes ever.
No, awaits.
Awaits, okay, awaits. Whatever.
I was wondering.
It's like, so people should look up my stuff on IMDb.
I'm on there now.
I'd love to know what people think, and they can try to Facebook friend me, although I've got like 4,600 friends, and I think the limit is
5,000.
4,600. I think is what it is now, and I think it stopped at 5,000.
Yeah, I've got you on Facebook.
Like 350 requests.
Mm-hmm.
I don't open up too often. I don't even look at it that often, but when I do once in a while, I'll accept a new Facebook friend.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, they can just look at my IMDb, and if they are already Facebook friends, of course, they can send me messages on Facebook. And if I do accept a Facebook friend, I usually accept people who look like they're going to bring a lot of activity, where they already have a lot of other Facebook friends. So if you don't have any Facebook friends, get a whole bunch and then contact me.
I was just curious.
It's all about activity.
Yeah.
Facebook is just another form of advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of fun. It's also a way to study people, which is partly my approach to acting, is to study people and see how they function. And that's how I teach acting. I want people to look at people and try to understand what's going on with them. And I have a Bachelor of Science in Speech from Northwestern University.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to lots of different colleges, including the University of California in Korea. After the war ended, they then brought over teachers, and I did pick up 9 hours of college credits in Korea. I was there the last 6 months of that war, and luckily I was not in the worst part of that war, which was earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
Koreans are amazing people, and I look back with gratitude of getting to know the Koreans and how terrific bunch of people they were. But it's life is a constant. It should be a constant challenge, and it should be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always fun. I mean, sometimes it's terrible.
Yeah.
Handle the pain. I mean, Buddha said, life without pain is not possible. So, and I always say it with a little giggle, and kind of what I liked about Buddha was that he seemed to have a sense of humor about the whole thing. There's another book called The Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, and there's a saying which I pretty much figure is the meaning of my whole life. It is, and I look back on my life as a child. I mean, I had my first job when I was 6 years old. I was a working class kid in an area in Chicago. I made 60 cents a week for 6 days' work, 10 cents a day, and felt rich. So, like, okay, life is full of challenges, and it should be. But the Tao Te Ching, the saying that I like is, accept a disaster as a welcome gift. Which, in a way, I look at my whole life, and it's a series of disasters that cause you to stand up and grow up to it. Be strong enough to handle the disaster, get big and powerful, and or dumb, and make mistakes and accept them and grow from them. And so I've never stopped working. I mean, as a kid, I worked in delivering groceries at 6 years of age for 60 cents a week, and I delivered for a butcher with my bicycle. I think I made a little more money in that. I dug ditches. I did lawn mowing. I sold magazines door to door, going to people's doors. I worked on a newsstand in Loop in Chicago from the age of 8 to 13. I made $6 a week for 6 days. And in the cold winter and in the hot summers and cold winter where I'm lifting 100-pound bales of newspapers to unwrap them, and freezing and running into the drugstore, and they let me sit in the booth there, and I would be able to look out at the newsstand. And it's like all of these difficulties made me fairly strong. It also made me different than other people. I mean, back in those days in Chicago, there was a strong Polish and Irish influence on the Chicago accent. So the Irish would go, "Yes, Father, thank you, Father." And the Polish, which fabulous people. I did a Polish film about 5 years ago in Poland. I had to make, 6 trips to Warsaw, Poland to do that film where I acted in Polish. Jak się masz, dupa? You know what I just said?
Nope.
Do you?
No, I don't.
Good. No, it wasn't that rude.
Here's a question.
Chicago saying, Jak się masz, which is, hey, how you doing?
There you go. I would. I was.
Jak się masz, dupa? Hey, how you doing, ass? That was the Chicago warm greeting from the
there you go.
And those guys in Chicago, which is how I used to talk in Chicago. If you didn't talk like that, you weren't a tough guy. You were considered a sissy. And in those days, I was an athlete. I played football. I was a wrestler. I played high school city championship team, Soldiers Field in Chicago. We were the city champs. 80,000 people watching us. Great place to play.
Mm-hmm.
Played at college there, Wright Junior College. Played 2 years there, all conference both years. And on Sundays, under another name, I would play for a semi-pro team and made a little money doing it. I had a deal with the quarterback. If he called my number inside the 20-yard line and I scored a touchdown, which got $5 for every time he scored a touchdown, I would have to give him $2.
Okay.
Or maybe it was $1, depending on which quarterback I was dealing with. But that's where I was going. I had no idea I was going to become an actor, even though I was already acting every minute I had and didn't know I was an actor.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a good buddy in Chicago. He and I used to do an art project together and work out with weights. He wanted to become Mr. Chicago. I just wanted to be strong enough to play football because I wasn't that big, but I was really very powerful physically. Luckily, I still have some of that strength. But this buddy of mine said, "Hey, Bruce, you got a good build on you. You ought to go down there and pose at the Art Institute for the art classes." So I said, okay, and I went down there, and there was a beautiful nude woman posing across the room. She came up to me at the break, and she said, "Bruce, how would you like to..." And she paused, and I'd seen her naked, she was beautiful, and she paused, and my mind was like to, about 19 different ways. And then she looked at me and said, "Be a gorilla." What the hell is she talking about? And there's some kind of new sex act that they have in Chicago that I don't know anything about. Not that I know anything about it now. I'm still trying to learn. So, sex is a very mysterious thing anyway. So she turned out she was a stripper. She needed a guy strong enough to wear a 100-pound ape suit and toss around in a strip act.
Okay.
And it was a famous act called Serene and the Ngaki. And the Ngaki was this ape throwing around this naked girl while she stripped, and with all kinds of dialogue and stuff. It was quite a spectacular act that started in the Chicago World's Fair. And so I thought that sounded like a dignified thing to do. I went down to, I met the guy who owned the act, Freddie Smith, nice man, who was an agent for strippers, and he owned this act with the ape suit and a big dialogue, and it was great music and stuff, a whole choreographed thing. And he told me to go down to the Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago and meet Bushman. Now, Bushman was a famous, 400, 500-pound gorilla. And I went to the zoo, and I was in the ape house down near where the chimpanzees were, and was looking down at Bushman at the other end of the ape house, and there was a bunch of people around there. And then they left, and I was looking at Bushman. He had like a special big cage, double cage, and he looked over at me. And I thought, that's amazing. He's actually focusing on me. Then he waved with his big giant hand, and I went over, and I stood in front of his cage. It was like a extra bar, so you can't get too close to the cage. And he looked at me, and he said, "Bruce, I'm going to give you your first acting lesson, but don't tell anyone I can talk." So I said, "Okay, Bushman. I mean, you're not going to argue with a 500-pound gorilla."
No.
And he said, "Think my thoughts." Well, I went, "Okay." And then he said, "Do my moves." I went, "Okay." And he said, "That's it. That's your first acting lesson. Get out." So, in a sense, that is the first acting lesson that I give any person. You think the character's thoughts, and you do the character's moves. I mean, if the character is a gorilla, then you do gorilla moves. If the character has one bad leg, you have one bad leg. If the character's athletic, then you're athletic. If the character is dying, then you're dying. And you just have to recreate the reality of the character.
Mm-hmm.
And there are other things, too. I mean, acting is very simple, and there are all these schools of acting that, so anyway, I did the ape act, and we went down to Florida with the thing, and a magician working in the nightclub came over. I remember his name, Don. He had a little pencil-thin mustache, and he was from Hollywood. And we were down in Tampa Bay, Florida, and he came over jokingly, nice guy, tapped me with his magic wand, and he said, "Bruce, you are an actor." I went, "Oh, okay." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You make that gorilla so believable, you ought to try acting." So in my tough guy neighborhood and working class, I worked in a glass factory when I was 14 to 16, ladling hot glass. So, you're working class. I worked construction crews, guys like that. In those days, you had to be a tough guy.
Mm-hmm.
Saying you were going to be an actor was like saying, well, I'm going to wear a dress and this kind of makeup. And so only, the kind of flighty boys were interested in acting back in my high school days.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was a championship football player, and that was okay. But I was doing acting stuff. I remember doing fake wrestling shows and stuff like that, not realizing I was acting, just for fun at, little events and things like that. But, so at any rate, that was the first time I was kind of consciously thought of being an actor. I can remember reading something about a good actor could raise one eyebrow separately from the other eyebrow. And I remember standing in front of a mirror when I was very young, examining that. So I must have been thinking of this acting thing. But that's the worst kind of acting, to think of being able to raise one eyebrow
Mm-hmm.
rather than the other. You shouldn't be anywhere aware of what your face is doing when you're a good actor. Shouldn't even be thinking about it. But a lot of actors are just handsome, and they just make sure that they stay handsome all the time.
Yep.
That's what they consider. Some of these people become big stars just doing that. So,
Was Crispin?
guys like me are so changeable that
Yeah.
people don't even realize that I've done this, this, and this, and that it's the same guy doing all these different roles. Because I changed so much. But that's the fun of it for me. I mean, being the same in every role would be very boring to me.
Oh yeah. Well, I was going to ask, has Crispin taken anything from watching you? Like, is there anything you've noticed that in any of his performance that is like, he got that from watching me?
No.
Okay.
Crispin got from me and his mother great genes.
Okay.
So both his mother and I have high IQs, and he had a high IQ and a good body, and he's good looking, like me. Pretty gorgeous still. And no, one of the things, somebody once asked me, I was doing an autograph thing in England, and they said, "Did you teach Crispin everything about acting?" I said, I wrote on they were getting an autograph, and I wrote on the picture, "Never teach your child what your child already knows."
Okay.
You won't compute. So since I was an instinctual actor, I depended on Crispin's instincts and his intelligence, and his mother was very active about getting him started as an actor. I was more concerned with his being aware of what I was doing, because when you're I didn't have any zoom to fame as an actor. I was one of those guys that started out working summer stock. I was working summer stock and doing plays. I did literally 100 plays in summer stock, repertory, college productions of Shakespeare, which helped me lose my D's, M's, and Do's accent. You can't do Shakespeare with a D's, M's, and Do's accent.
Yep.
But the whole idea of acting with that ape act indication from the magician in the nightclub, I still didn't have any idea that I was going to act. I mean, it was just amazing. But I got drafted for the Korean War, and was there for the last 6 months of the war, and then another, almost another year in Korea, and where I picked up more college credits and stuff, and still continued in the Army, and they gave me an early discharge because I was going to go back to college. And I went back to, I had a football scholarship, but because there were certain things where the football scholarship, they said I had to go to another college to prove that I could do college-level work. The weird thing about certain people is there was something that people didn't know about. I remember one of the reasons why I got drafted for the Korean War was I had flunked English 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And that caused the draft board to catch up on me, even though I passed all the tests, which kept me in college, and they had deferred me from being drafted. But now they caught up to me and got me over to Korea. Luckily, it was only the last 6 months of that war. So to me, but when the war stopped, the University of California sent college professors, and I was able to pick up that 9 hours. And one of the courses I took was English, because I figured I better pass English so I can pick up my football scholarship. And so I took this English course. Seoul, Korea. The Army was very good. They got us to Seoul, drove us there, and all of that. And most of the classes were colonels and generals, and one little corporal, me. And this University of California, very fine teacher, pulled me aside at the end of the course and said, "Bruce, I don't know what it is about you, but if I went by the rules and your grammar score, I would have to flunk you again in English." He said, "There's something about you that I don't understand, and the thing is, you're a good writer." Now, he had given out writing tests, and I'd written 3 short stories, and he told me I had superior skills as a writer, even though I flunked all my grammar scores. And back then, they didn't know what it was. He said, "I don't know what it is about you, but I'm going to pass you so you can get past this, whatever it is." Well, in those days, they didn't know there was this thing called so anyway, this college professor from the University of California in Seoul, Korea, said, "I don't know what it is about you, but you have something going on. I don't understand what it is, but we need to, I need to pass you because you're a terrific writer. You wrote terrific short stories, and you have skills, but I'm just going to get you past it so you don't have to think about it anymore." Well, several years later, I discovered, and I have a Bachelor of Science in Speech with a minor in psychology. And I've been very interested in psychology because from the time I was a kid, I knew everyone was crazy, and I wanted to understand how they all functioned and malfunctioned and why. And so a lot of what I do as an actor and what I do as a teacher, and I suppose what I do as a person, is I examine how people function and how they malfunction. And that's what I'm not a big fan of psychiatry, but I am a fan of psychology, where there's a school of psychology that was based on the whole psychoanalysis, and that I don't agree with, and so the psychologist, the school of psychology that would help me get past the whole psychoanalysis crap was a school called Transactional Analysis. And what the transactional analysis is this just the title itself, transactional analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everything we do is a transaction, and analysis is how did that transaction go, and that's a good school of psychology, where if you look at who's the hell I'm trying to think of Jung and who's the great psychoanalyst?
I wouldn't know.
I'm not. What's his name? I'm suddenly thinking. I'm trying to think of the name right now of the guy who was the head of psychoanalysis. Anyway, we'll think of it eventually. When I wake up at 2 in the morning, I'll remember the name. But he had divided the mind into 3 parts. And he called these parts the id, the ego, and the superego.
Mm-hmm.
And the id was this part that he called it the id, but it was like all about sex, and that's all that part was about. And the other 2 parts were the adult and the superego, and the only part that he had correct was the superego. And later on, when I studied the transactional analysis thing, and it's still there, it's worth looking into. There are always varieties of different ways of different so-called schools of anything, any study. And but the transactional analysis people still named these things in 3 parts, but they changed the name, the id, which was all about the sex,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually we'll both think of the name of the guy who wrote all that stuff. I'm popping other names in my head that have nothing to do with psychoanalysis. Like Meisner and Strasberg and stuff like that. That's nothing to do with it. Anyway, or Stanislavski, who was a great acting teacher. Anyway, the names that they changed, the thing that was the id, they called it a different name, which was very helpful. They called it the child. The child, of course, the child is all about discovery and new experiences, and it's alive and happening right now. Look at any child; they're from the time they're a baby, they're exploring and reaching out and wanting to touch the nose of the parent looking down at them, and they want to find out, and that's what made that part viable for me. And it also ties in with how I teach acting. The part that not what the hell is his name? You'll think of it eventually.
I don't know.
At any rate, Jung and who was the other big? They were kind of the beginners of early study of psychoanalysis. At any rate, so the part that he had correct was the part that he called the superego. And the superego, the transactional analysis people gave it a different name. They called it the parent. Now, that started to make sense to me. The 3 parts had different names. And in a sense, I've divided how I approach this thing into two parts, the right brain and the left brain. The right brain is the child and what Strasberg? No.
I got a name up here, Carl Jung.
Jung is, but not Jung. Jung was off in another direction. It was
Okay.
the guy who did the three-part thing, and I can't think of his name.
Oh, well.
Embarrassing. But at any rate, the three parts that he had was id, ego, and superego.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the transactional analysis people called the id the child, which to me suddenly unlocked it into a wonderful kind of exploration instead of just a simple-minded, constant think of sex.
Mm-hmm.
Sex is certainly part of what a child eventually discovers, but it's not the main thing. The main thing about that part of the brain is discovery and living it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then the middle brain that was called the ego, they called it the adult. So you have the adult and the child, and I put that on one half of the brain. That's the right brain, the part that lives right now. Yeah, the adult is there, but the adult is also able to play with the child and teach the child and interact with the child, but it's all about living now. The parent is what the transactional analysis people call the superego.
Mm-hmm.
And they call it the parent. Well, yeah, that's exactly what the superego is doing. It's all about doing it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, doing it correctly is not what life is about.
No.
Living is what life is about. And that's what all art should be, is living. So actors who are involved with the left brain are doing it correctly. I'm a right brain actor where you're alive and living it.
Mm-hmm.
And every good actor has a dominance of that right brain. There may be, levels of how much right brain and how much left brain. There is a certain amount of correctness in, like, okay, are you hitting your mark for the camera? Are you in your lights? And if there's such a thing as comedy, well, yeah, there can be craft, I suppose. A lot of people talk about the art and craft of acting, but it should be more about the art. And film should be more about the art and not about just the money. Somehow the craft moves into the money control, making sure everything is being done correctly. Well, correct is not my way of approaching things. Incorrect is my way of approaching it, so that I will surprise myself and the audience, and yet you're still hitting your mark.
Mm-hmm.
And but good directors like Polanski and my son Crispin
Mm-hmm.
have an ability to just take what is real and instinctual from people who have never acted and put them into a film, and it all works. Polanski did it in Chinatown.
Yep.
There was a girl that played the office worker. She'd never acted before,
Mm-hmm.
but she was real and, lovely in her realness, and a lovely
Yep.
girl, a lovely person. I met her children at an event at the Academy sometime later, and she was in the audience, and we got her up on the stage with the actors that were there, and gave her some kind of credit for what she had added to that film.
Yep.
And there are lots of different things that work in film, and lots of things that become kind of, I find I'm a member of the Academy since 1972.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a member on the Foreign Film Committee for 40 years, and I'm also was a member of the Belgian Friends of Belgian Film for the last 5 years, and where I try to get them to listen to me about what film they should present to the Academy for the Academy Awards.
Yeah, do they listen to you?
No. No, they don't. They never do what I tell them to do. They did give me a medal at the last event I was at with them. I suppose as a way of apologizing. They gave me a medal for thanking me for all the time I worked with them. But it really was more like a apology for never doing what I've done. This year, the film they're submitting is not the one that I thought was the best film.
Oh, okay.
It's good luck with it, but it won't have the success that the one that I selected was Art. The one that they selected, I think, had more, I don't know, some kind of background to it. Sometimes, last year, the film that got submitted was one that had the most money background behind it. It wasn't the best film, and artistically. But that's how I look at films. I look at films as this is art. And that's one of the things I like about being on the Foreign Film Committee is there are this innocent approach to filmmaking where people just do art. And some of them are just really great films. And the Foreign Film Committee usually gets the ones that get nominated for, the 10 films or 8 films that end up being submitted to the whole branch of the Academy, all the branches of the Academy for nominations, being nominated and being awarded the Academy Award for Best Foreign Film, are first gone through by this committee and then presented. So I think there's still that chance that art will somehow sneak out there every once in a while. And
yep.
Sometimes in the big films, they will pop out, and there will be a big film that has, some kind of impact artistically. Although I think, there are these giant films where millions of dollars are put into these films. I've got a film that people should do that I've written that I would direct and star my son in it that could be done for, I don't know, $3 to $5 million.
Yep. Well, it seems to be the thing, isn't
but
it?
instead, that's like a day's pay for some of these giant films that are being done now. So, if anyone's got $3 to $5 million when they want to invest in this terrific film that I have, that I had the money for it at one point, and the guy who was putting the money up for it was terrific understanding of how terrific a film it was going to be, and I still have the script. He went and died on me.
Oh, gee.
So, and his wife pulled out of the project, so I had other people that wanted to invest in the film, they said, and then I found out they wanted me to mortgage my house.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
No.
No.
That's, you work for years to get some kind of stable kind of life where you don't have to be running around, selling newspapers down in the Loop in Chicago when you're my age.
That's right.
So, it's like the business is important, because there are a lot of these big films which give a lot of people income, and hopefully the politicians will lower the taxes in California so more films will be made in California and people don't have to run off to southern states or to Canada to stay alive as people that work in film, because the film industry is not just actors or just writers or directors. It's all these other people who add so much to the film. Look at camera people that
Yep.
are putting so much into making a film fabulous. And that's one of the great things about film, and it's one of the things I suggest to people. If you're working on film, learn to respect all those people that work on film. So, in a sense, like you asked me earlier about Crispin and how much input I was going to have into him, one of the times I had a play that was going to go back to Broadway that opened here in Los Angeles at the Music Center, the opening season of the Music Center, and it was going to go back to Broadway, and it got held up. So in the meantime, I had to send my wife and boy back to New York because she had signed him up for preschool.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting some work here, and so my agent said, well, hang out there until the play opens on Broadway. And then it turned out the play wasn't opening on Broadway, but I was still picking up work here, starting to more television and moving towards a film career.
Yes.
And my son saw me on the Rat Patrol when he was like less than 3 years old. And on this Rat Patrol, he saw me get killed.
Oh, okay.
And here's this little boy seeing his daddy get killed on television.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, not sure if I'm alive. And I'm here, and I was only able to afford in those days one phone call a week. Back in those days, you didn't have phones like now. You would have to make phone calls. So, anyway, finally, when I got back to, when finally the play wasn't going to be done on Broadway, the decision was made to forget New York. And I'd done Broadway and off-Broadway, and like I said, 100 plays, 16 Broadway and off-Broadway plays. But theater was dying because television was killing it.
Yep.
And you had to make this change. So I made the decision, along with my wife, that this was time to forget New York, make the move, and become, Hollywood or Los Angeles, California, and put down payment on a house in the Marina Del Rey area, a little two-bedroom house, which I still own, luckily, and made the move. But when I went back to New York, Crispin was looking at me, and I'm not sure if he believed I was his father because he'd seen me killed. I would take him sledding and in New York and in the park and stuff like that, but finally started to see that it was me. So you're making the transition, and I'm like an actor and realizing that I have to make steps to get working more and more. And, zoom to the top is not something that I did. I had to make step by step by step. And at one point, I got a movie that was going to be shot in Arizona. And I said, I'm going to be shooting a movie in Arizona. And my little boy, who recently remembered seeing me get killed on television, said, Daddy, when they shoot them, will they be shooting near you? And I realized that he thought I was in danger of being killed again.
Oh, okay.
And I had to explain to him that shooting, and I took out a camera and I showed him, and I showed him, we're talking about shooting film and stuff like that. So early days of influencing him was to get him to understand what it was I was doing, so he wasn't afraid that his daddy was going to be killed. So I would take him to movie sets and stuff and show him what people did and what their roles were. And in the long run, I think that had an influence on how he respects people who work in all the other crafts in business. And which, at any rate, his mother took him out to stuff like that. So, again, I didn't try to influence how he would approach acting.
Mm-hmm.
I would talk to him more about movie sets and what there were there. And eventually, Crispin took classes, but I didn't interfere with what they were teaching him. I thought the social experience of being with these other people was more important than me telling him how to do it. But he would have friends that came that he was working with, and they would ask me questions about how to do sensory exercise and things like that. So I would take those opportunities to explain some of the things that I taught as a teacher. And but he, I think recently, somebody told me that he, at one of his shows that he does, he tours his movies that he's done. What Is It? And which is a brilliant film, his first film, and then It Is Fine, Everything Is Fine, which I'm also in. And then other things that he's done, he did some shorts and some musical things like that. But he tours these things, and somebody told me recently that he was describing something about our working together, and he said, my father was a natural.
Mm-hmm.
And in a sense, that's true. And he said, but I had to learn how to act. So I guess that's the way he thinks, that he had to take these classes to learn how to act.
Okay.
But, I think the instinct and the intelligence was there, and the influence of both his mother and I on him also balanced out some of the things. But I look at his work, and a good friend of his, and who I knew slightly, had said that she looked and said that here were two incredibly talented people who approached their work both very differently. And she died not too long after that, but I wish I would have been able to talk to her about what she observed and what she's saying. But I think there is that kind of sense of, because he came into, seeing parents that were doing things, and then went to classes and took these various classes. I did 10 plays before I ever was in a class. I never read a book on acting. When I got out of the Army, I came back to L.A., and I had malaria, so I couldn't pick up my football scholarship, which I had a scholarship off with the Colorado College, which also had a good art school.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't go, honestly say to him, I'm ready to come and play football again. I went back to this college where I played football in Chicago and saw a play being advertised. And I thought, maybe I should see if that magician who tapped me with his magic wand was correct. And I tried out for the play. It was a Tennessee Williams play called Camino Real. And I tried out for the play, and the director said, come back to the callbacks. And I guess something in me, maybe I got scared of the idea of trying this acting thing, so I didn't go back to the callback. And,
okay.
I missed it because I was setting up my 8-act again
Yep.
to help me get through college. And because colleges are expensive. And I saw this play and callback I didn't go to, and I'm walking down a flight of stairs, and I see this teacher at the college coming up the stairs at me and says, where were you? And I said, what? He said, you didn't come back to the callbacks. I said, yeah, I know. I got busy, and I'm a little busy. And he said, I want you to play the lead.
Okay.
So I said, all right. So I played Kilroy in Camino Real. And I'd never read a book on acting, never had an acting class, hadn't even ever seen a play. I'd only seen movies. So.
Which do you prefer, acting for screen or doing plays?
Well, doing plays is a lot more work.
Okay.
But I don't ever want to do another play again. I might direct a play,
Okay.
which I've done in the past. I might direct a play that I've written. I've got a couple of plays, actually. And I'm a person of constant creative activity, and it's annoying in a way because every time I turn around, I get a new idea.
Okay.
But my problem with dyslexia is dyslexics have a tendency to do too many things at once.
Okay.
There's smart dyslexics and dumb dyslexics. I'm luckily one of the smart ones. And so I have to grab myself and say, okay, this is the project you have to do, which is what my son is being very helpful about. You have to do your art book. So I have to do my art book.
Talk about your art book. You got a love for art. We haven't really spent a lot of detail on that. Talk about your art book and when you're going to get that published.
Well, it's a matter of taking photos right now. I have an iPhone, and I have to take photos and then submit them to my son, and he has strong ideas about the books, and it's his idea that we self-publish rather than... I did have an offer some time ago. I'm in a book called Actors as Artists, and there's a painting in there of my son Crispin overlooking Hollywood Boulevard and making gestures, and I titled it Crispin Creating Hollywood.
Okay.
So that's in a book called Actors as Artists. I don't know if anyone can find it in a library or whatever, but it is a book, and I was in a few magazines with some stuff where they talked about my art. But I have sold paintings. But I was busy with, that's the thing about being multi-talented. You have a tendency to, well, again, what I say is dyslexic, is that a tendency to be able to do a lot of different things. And if you're a smart dyslexic. And point is, well, I realized at some point I had to emphasize one of these things, and it was acting, which is a lot of fun, of course. And but I was always painting and drawings, and whenever I was on movie sets, I would do drawings of crews and things like that. And some of the paintings will be paintings of movie sets and people working on movie sets, mostly the crew.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I've interviewed a lot of people that are either into sculpting or painting or any form of art like that. Do you have a specific thing you like painting the best? I know you mentioned sets and stuff like that, but is there anything that just grabs you?
Everything grabs me. That's one of the things that everything grabs me. I can be walking down the street and see a tin can squashed a certain way on the ground and want to pick it up and turn it into an art project. It's like...
well, there are people that do that. I mean, the people that would see it just as trash. Other people see it as an opportunity to... well, you see something else. I find that fascinating.
Yeah. It is something that, again, I have to control myself and not try to do everything that comes to mind. I have to emphasize one thing or another.
Okay.
Obviously, when the acting career was being built and I had a wife and a kid and a mortgage to be paid, that was where my main emphasis was. But I was always sketching and stuff, and I would do things on the side, and I would do some paintings, and there would be, between films, and at one point in our house, our first house, I had a big yard, and I would do strange paintings on boards that I would find and windows and big chunks of wood that I would go out and see on garbage night and bring them back to my place and put them in the backyard and spray paint them and then set fire to them. and blow out the fire when I was happy with what I saw, and then put a coverage painting over a coverage protective transparent thing over that. So I did probably about 12 paintings like that, and sometimes the paintings were so big the fire department would be called. People would see smoke in the air, and they'd be circling the block trying to figure out where that fire was.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of those paintings were hung outside in the yard through several winters and weather and stuff, and they were so screwed up I just totally destroyed them. But I have about 3 or 4 of those paintings still left that are the smaller versions. So paintings
Okay.
I did were fire paintings. So I do, I do abstract, and I have, I don't know where I'll go with. Right now, what I'm going to be doing is cataloging what I've already got.
Okay.
Saying stuff. I also have, other things that I'm writing. I've got a book on acting that I should be, eventually will be doing. But I've got to stick with one thing and do it and stick with that. So it's going to be the art book. And also hoping that when Crispin's finished with the editing and it's shown at Sundance, that people will see it and see how great we were and pay him a lot of money for selling the film or whatever, or will he end up touring it? Who knows? But the idea is selling a book will be money, another way of making money, and it's nice to make money, and I've always believed in real estate, and Crispin has real estate here in L.A. and Silver Lake, and he has 2 condos in New York City, and he also has the estate in the Czech Republic, and I have the 2 houses here in L.A. So I tell people, if you're gonna invest money, be careful and stick with something that has a very interesting part of it in the title.
Mm-hmm.
The title part that's interesting is REAL, real estate.
Yep.
Because it's real.
Mm-hmm.
But I figure, if you can't afford to buy a whole house or a whole lot or something like that, go buy graveyard plots. They go up in price too. Anyway, I think I bored everyone long enough with all this stuff. We'll come back and talk again sometime.
You know what? I've been just listening here, and I've been clicking, trying to find the name of that that psychoanalysis, but I can't find them. No, you tell some amazing stories, and I hope that your book comes out and is successful. And I like the fact that Crispin's taking his time with his projects too, because you don't know how many times you see films that are just rushed out, and they look like crap. So if they need to take extra long to do their film, then you know what, if that's what makes it great, go for it, I say. But it's been wonderful, having you on here, and I just love just listening and let you go. You're a good storyteller.
Talk.
Well, you know what? We are approaching in on 90 minutes, so but I got to say it's an honor, and I thank you for just coming on the spot. As I said, Chinatown's celebrating its 45th anniversary, and I thought, you know what? Got to see if Bruce wants to come back on. I thought it would be, fair to invite you.
Well, invite me for the anniversary of Walking Tall, the anniversary of Diamonds Are Forever, the anniversary of Hard Times, the anniversary, there's a lot of other films. So invite me back for anniversaries, and click on to my, my incredible ability to constantly talk.
Actually, it's interesting because I was watching Quentin Tarantino's new film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and there's a scene in it, I think, where Margot Robbie is playing Sharon Tate, and she's watching Cece and Company, the trailer for it or something. I think it's...
Yeah, I'm in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I glanced I saw her once, Sharon Tate once. And
Yeah.
very sweet, and I found the movie very disturbing.
What, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yeah, I mean, it's brilliantly done, and I like Tarantino. He's a wonderful guy and fun, and one time recently when I met him, he came at me like he was the head of my fan club. I mean, he's a terrific guy and fun and a terrific talent, but there's things about that movie that disturb me.
Well, I'm going to say this, and I know he retold some history there, but you know what? Manson was an idiot as far as I'm concerned, and
No, he was. Listen, let's not go into it. I don't want to ruin the movie or for other people who are going to see it.
No.
Let's not go into the thing. But I will remember the name of the great psychologist who.
You go remember that in the middle of the night, and then you're not going to be able to get back to sleep.
Well, I'll remember it as soon as we hang up.
That's how it always goes, huh?
Let's not go into ruining the movie. I mean, Tarantino is a great talent, and there's brilliant things in the movie and brilliant performances. And Robbie is lovely and sweet in the film, and
Oh, I loved it. I went to it 3 times.
Well, cool. I will explain to you after, say a year from now. I will tell you why the movie disturbed me and what things about the movie disturbed me, and I will tell you stories in the future.
Okay, we can do that.
So everyone, please go look at my imdb.com over and over again. Do it every day, and you'll help me gather money for my next film project.
You know what disturbs me?
What?
That Quentin hasn't got you in a movie yet.
I told him he should get me in a movie, and he said, "Yeah, but this is his last movie." So,
No, he's going to do one more. I think he told Howard Stern he wants to do 10 movies.
Well, maybe he will. I mean, I love, he's a lovely guy. He's fun. I mean, he really is genuinely, outrageously enthusiastic about everything.
Yeah.
And he was very, very fun to me, and both Crispin and I were at an event with him for another movie. And he came at me, and I'd never met him before, and he was like head of my fan club. I was like amazed because he's not a standoffish kind of pompous guy. He's a really great guy and wonderful fun to be with.
I thought I was the head of your fan club.
Huh? Well, let's let Tarantino be your second.
Bruce, thank you so much for coming on here and chatting with me again. And I just wonder if before you go, you mind doing a plug for my show?
What do you want me to say?
Just state your name and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise out in New Brunswick, Canada. You got all that?
Gilbert Sullivan is worth listening to on Python, whatever the hell that is. This is Bruce Glover extolling his brilliance and the fun it is to be with him. So, people, listen into him. He's worth it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bruce. And boy, oh boy, you keep turning 39.
Well, look me up, people. Look me up on IMDb, and you'll find out what my age really is. But look at my pictures and see recent pictures where I'm still flirting with young women. I don't look my age. So. Thank you, young women, for letting me flirt with you.
Thank you so much, Bruce, for coming on here on the spot, and it's been an honor. Thank you so much.
All right, Greg. Okay, we're through dinging. I'm going to hang up on you now, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. God bless you, and you have a wonderful day.
Thanks, pal. Later. Bye-bye.
Bye.